Asante sana for coming. Karibu.
Asante sana.
Karibu. Of course, this is your first time into this studio.
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good. You're setting the pace here.
Very good.
Right.
Voila. Now, getting straight into it. Last week, of course, you appeared before the steering committee of the BBI, and you gave the Amani National Congress's position on this. And of course, the first thing that you first of all said is, we have seen very many reports produced. We are very good at doing reports. And you raised, from the very onset, you raised the issue that you'd like this report to get implemented, at least, unlike others. What is it that you had in mind when you said this?
Well, I think I would like Kenyans, particularly those who occupy public space, either in leadership or in certain roles, to actually take the Kenyan people seriously. And therefore, when you have a TJRC report sitting in Parliament for too long, and it's not being deliberated on, even if it were to be discussed and then cast out, at least somebody has
let some action be taken.
Yeah. But when you have such critical things just lying there and others, and then later the same problem catches up with us in a different age or a different time, then we are not doing justice to our people. And this is why I felt that without giving up hope, we should give a clear indication to the steering committee that we would like them to focus and really steer what this initiative was all about. Because as things stand now, it's like those of us who are in politics are hijacking the process. And it's dangerous.
I could shake your hand right now.
You know the issues that are being canvassed are issues that need to be thought through, maybe even carved out with a surgical blade, and then handed over to the BBI and say, this is the area that needs to be addressed. And as I've said, there's always somebody with a better idea than myself, somewhere out there. But let us help in crystallizing on these issues. What we are seeing at the BBI rallies is now beginning to degenerate into something else. The drumbeats of ethnic profiling are beginning to re-emerge. Our constitution already guarantees the rights to property and where you can stay and your association. It's already guaranteed. So even if we are to address some historical injustice, it should not be at the expense of killing what has been protected.
The gains that we've made
in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So these are some of the concerns that I have, and I would really encourage that the Haji Steering Committee comes to the front line on this matter, so that there can be structured ways of getting these processes there and looked at. They said their mandate is to validate what was already presented. I don't know whether those rallies
are validating anything. Initially, you were opposed to those rallies, Mheshimiwa, and then, of course, when they came to the Kakamega rally, you attended that rally, and after that, we've seen you attending the rallies. Now, what you're saying now is what you were saying before the Kakamega rally. But when you attend that rally, are you not also validating what is happening with those
endorsing it?
Or endorsing the rallies?
No. The idea is not to endorse. That is why I went with very specific, as a party, we went with very specific suggestions to
the steering committee.
To the steering committee, because we know that is where those views are supposed to be taken in. The others are people are now guising. They are guises of a validation process.
Actually, essentially, they are calling a campaign process a validation process.
There you are.
Yes, because it's campaigning. If you look at it, however you want to look at it, it's campaigning. Using the BBI as the fuel for it, because under the cover of a BBI, you throw in the word BBI, you throw in the word some nice word that means
inclusivity
and everything. As I said, if it has webbed feet and it quacks,
it's not a donkey. It's not a donkey. I mean, but looking at this, you talked about the process having already been hijacked. Don't you think then in this case that, all attempts by the committee then are futile?
Well, this is what the committee needs to come out and tell us, because they have until end of June.
Yeah.
And they have released a timetable, and they're going to receive more views. They should also speak out to what they're seeing as a misdirection. Unfortunately, they have not really spoken out to say that some of the things we are seeing out there are not what we expect.
They wouldn't speak out against their own appointing authority. If you look at who's attending these rallies, who's spearheading the rallies.
And you see, those are the issues, because at the end of the day, this is where a little bit of the conflict comes in.
Yeah.
And a noble idea that is now being distorted. Because it's like me telling you, I've appointed you to give me a report, but this is the report. I want you to.
So do you take it and then give it back to me?
Yeah. So these are the things that we need to clarify. And for instance, the position of if you're expanding the structure of the executive.
Yeah.
I did say, is there clarity? We need clarity in all these issues. So you want a prime minister. What kind of prime minister do you want?
Are we even clear of the system of government that they're talking about?
Now, these are all issues that we need to clarify. Yeah. Without clarity, we'll be creating a mongrel all the time.
With all of this, there seems to be an inner caucus that is operating, especially around these rallies and what's said to be the belief. And it seems that the people who are not in the inner caucus, as it were, then have a lot of criticisms. Where would you place yourself in all of this?
I think I'm not the author of the BBI process, and I had some misgivings even from the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is why, for instance, when I was in Narok, I talked about the need for clarity. If we are going to make this an initiative that will be helpful to the people of Kenya, then clarity is important. And
would you have those same sentiments if you were leading this pack, as it were?
Yes. I would insist that let us be very specific. For instance, when you have a host of governors, I mean, what are they really saying ought to be done to improve efficiency in the government
of counties
that they run? You barely hear anything out of that,
They talk about regional governments.
No, but regional governments and the legality of it is embedded in our constitution. And I think what Mheshimiwa is saying is, do you hear them expounding on matters that are contained in the constitution that would make the life of the institutions and the bodies that they govern better?
Absolutely.
Of course not.
You don't hear it.
Of course
not even a drop, not even a word, not even a sentence.
With that happening, Mheshimiwa, well, we have a steering committee that is supposed to be working, professionally and above board, and then we've got an entire political machinery that is being led by none other than the appointing authority, right? Do you see BBI actually getting to a point where it delivers for us what it ought to be delivering?
Unless it's given clear direction and get it back into, it could lose the country. Yeah, we could. We are having now a situation where the politicians are doing what they know what to do best. Others are coming with hired crowds.
Yeah.
And then planting them in some of these venues in different corners so that as somebody speaks, they're supposed to be chanting or shouting somebody down and so forth.
Yeah.
Now that is completely getting taking Kenyans for a ride.
Right.
So this is why I say that the appointing authorities have an opportunity to get people to focus. We can't be a country that is permanently living on rallies and people have got to work.
These are your contemporaries, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
They're your friends. Do you tell them when you meet with the president, when you meet with Raila Odinga, do you tell him, no, come on, let's do this?
I tell them. I speak to them.
What's
and
their
I tell
reaction
them
to this?
Of course.
They agree.
They say they agree. But I can tell you it's important that we focus. We don't have much time. Yeah.
Let me ask a different question, Mheshimiwa. ANC, no, let me start with ANC. Let's start with you. What one reads and what one hears, you are, for the larger part of our conversation, every Kenyan's lovable cousin. You are the friend one wishes to have. You are the person people feel comfortable with.
The safe pair of hands.
Yes, that's what you were termed as. ANC is I would call it a party that is yet to gain in strength. I say yet to gain in strength because this is now, I'm coming to my question. What is the ANC doing to get a serious national presence? Why I'm saying this is, for your voice to be heard loudly in this country, ANC has to be a powerful party to reckon with. And right now, it isn't.
I share your sentiment that there's a lot of work to be done. I agree with you. I'm not running away from that.
Yes.
And one of the things that we are working on particularly is not to kill the profile of ANC as an issue-based party. Okay, that is one thing we really want to develop. Now, we also are reviewing our constitution as a party, very advanced, and in this we want to broaden our footprint through better integration of Kenyans of diverse backgrounds,
Yes.
so that it can become a stronger party. And I can tell you that what we are doing very systematically is designed to make ANC the party of choice by the time we get to 2022. Yes.
So this is systematically.
Yes.
What are we likely to see now? The visual rollout of this strategy.
I think once we are through with our constitutional review process, and our target is that by May, some of these internal processes should be complete or well advanced. And I'll give you one other thing that we are doing as an example. One of our legislators is actually very advanced in the bill that deals with public debt management, which we want to present to the Kenyan people. Through the parliamentary process. We mentioned it to the BBI, but we will want Kenyans to support it because public debt has now become a major problem.
It's our issue.
Problem in this country.
No, it's a monster.
What would you say? I mean, if obviously you've talked about ANC being a party that's issue based. I mean, ideology based. What are some of those ideologies? I think it's important for for us to understand. What is it really at the crux of it all that ANC believes for this country?
You see, we would like to focus a lot on a well-functioning economy, matters economy. All right, good governance, but with very strong economic projections or targets. Because my view, and a lot of those in ANC who reflect on what Kenya is going through right now, unless we give sufficient attention to matters economy, we are headed for big crisis.
Some say we're there already.
We are there, but it could get worse.
It could get to Greece level. Greece crisis level. So your focus, of course, is like you're saying, is the economy. You've talked about public debt management, and you have an MP who's pushing this through the National Assembly. So this is the focus of the ANC.
That is one aspect. Economy, and I've just talked of debt as an issue.
Right? Now, how about the others? Why don't we feel the ANC going out and advocating these issues more loudly and more openly and in more fora? So that it becomes very clear that when it comes to economy, the one party that's going to save us is the ANC. Because we still feel that, when you come out, the last time we saw you was at, I think, the Lyco Regency towards the end of last year, talking about the same thing. Then you take a gap, then you come and talk about it again. If you're taking these kind of gaps, we're going to forget about you. We will be focusing on the bulldozers.
Well, thank you for the advice. This is the only thing I can say. Thank you for the advice that you'd like to see, and it's true that maybe more aggression in terms of articulating these economic concerns.
Absolutely, the conditioning that's taking place by others in this market, as it will say, some serious stuff, And if we're looking at the economic pillar as something being very strong here, coming out of ANC, which seems to be the outcry from many a Kenyan at this point, then it's something that don't you think also that then needs to come out very strongly?
Oh yes, it will. It will. But thank you for the advice on this one.
Does ANC have a program for the youth?
Yes, we do. We have a program for the youth. We are nurturing that. We have even drafted the youth charter, working with the youth on what they think are their priorities. So we are very deep into developing the youth programs. We have been sending some of our youth leaders on programs through Oslo Foundation and others for further exposure, not just within the Kenyan scenario, but we are sending some of them out there to help them just cultivate these leadership skills.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, this may be a private matter that you can't discuss on radio, but does ANC also have a concrete plan for ensuring that they have a serious war chest?
Well, that is what Kenyan politics is all about. Yes,
Yes, it is.
resources are
Yes.
important.
Right.
Yes.
We have our own approaches to resource mobilization
Yes.
going forward,
Yes.
and we hope we shall be able to have sufficient resources to be able to mount a good campaign.
You know, the
People
resource-
have said that Kenyan elections have now become very, very expensive. And just over the last, say, 3 elections, the kind of cost that is associated with an election has risen tremendously. Why is it so?
The most expensive election in the world.
Why is
let's give
Kenya's
it
election
in the
so
world.
expensive?
Well, these are some of the things that I think proper analysis and research should help us deal with. But frankly speaking, I think it's just sheer greed in Kenya.
Whose greed? Voters' greed?
Both voters and even some of the players. Yeah, this is just sheer greed.
Expound on that, please.
Because you see, somebody tells you that he needs to spend 50 million or 60 million in a constituency. Frankly speaking, I've been a member of parliament.
For the
And you have
longest-
campaigned.
Yeah.
You never used that amount?
No.
No?
Yeah. So there's the whole factor around these resources has sometimes been exaggerated.
It's exaggerated.
Yeah.
How much did you spend in Kibra?
Maybe about 10 million.
Just about 10 million.
Yeah.
And that was enough to actually run and the entire campaign.
By the way, we didn't do too badly,
Right.
frankly speaking.
Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah,
You didn't. Your candidate got over 7,000 votes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But were you outbid by the others?
Outspent.
Outspent?
Perhaps. Clearly, you could see some of the parties really flashing a lot of merchandise all over the place, and others converting government houses into cafes. So there's a bit of you can say that, but was it their resources or was it state resources in some of these instances? Yeah, those are the fundamental questions.
Why haven't you raised those questions?
We did.
Right.
Oh yes,
They
during the
actually
campaign we
did.
did.
Even during the campaign.
During the
they did.
campaign.
Yeah, we did.
Afterwards, following up on this and ensuring that you get the right answers for that, that kind of question.
Those are the questions that now, when we talk about management of elections and we look at the IBC, in this country and what it should be doing, and these are the questions that should answer. Why is an election in Kenya too expensive?
Yeah.
Why do they demand so much money to run elections? We also must ask them that why is it that you are IBC, you want to have a technology and you want us to have certain people manning your servers and so forth.
Yep.
But then who procured their technology. It was not procured by IBC.
No.
It was procured through the Department of ICT. Now
in the government.
Yes.
So you have to ask yourself certain
Fundamental
questions.
Yeah.
So going forward, I think those are the conversations that BBI
ought to be addressing.
I think we're running into a dangerous situation where we talk about things that ought to be or ought to be asked as opposed to being done now, because like you said, I mean, we're running out of time, you know, and the way in which I'm seeing it, with one rally after another, weekend after the next, before we know it, we're in the middle of the year, and then we get into elections proper. This is all going to be swept under the carpet.
This is why it is important that very clear reports or validation presentations are made to the BBI steering committee, so that they can focus and get experts now to help them distill and finish.
You know, when I was referring to resources, I wasn't thinking of financial resources. I was thinking of the one resource that is fundamental to any democracy or any government, and a resource that your party is pivoted, its existence is actually pivoted upon ideas and ideals. Because this is one sphere of our politics that is almost untouched. We politic and politic and politic. So herein lies a vacuum that no one seems to be exploiting, because what we are now discussing here, we hear it, as Eric mentioned, in spits, and then you go quiet. If this was a daily discourse, we would soon recognize ANC as the party that actually delves and deals with these. Why haven't you taken advantage of this opportunity, Mheshimiwa?
Well, I stand guided on this
And advice.
Let me say that you shall see more of us, you shall hear more of us.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the man, Musalia Mudavadi, right? You've run for president before. You have joined coalitions. You have, done quite a bit. In 2013, you were played, so to speak, right? Getting into an agreement, and then suddenly that agreement is no longer on the table. You found yourself forming a coalition again in 2017, and soon after, your coalition partners are saying this is a dead marriage. And yet there you are. You're not even the one who has said, I'm walking out. Why is it that people find it so easy to play Musalia Mudavadi?
No, I don't think they find it easy to play me. The incident of 2013 is water under the bridge. I moved on. The issue around NASA, if you're to talk of NASA as a coalition, I think is slightly different, because when you say our coalition partners have walked away, who has? Officially, nobody has quit. Nobody.
Officially.
NASA exists.
Officially.
NASA exists. It's a legal entity as a coalition.
But the Secretary General of one of the coalition partners has been here and has told us that thing is
It's
dead.
dead.
Then why don't they write a letter? Why doesn't that Secretary General write a letter
Officially.
and exit?
Why do you want to stay in this coalition?
No. Why do they, if they say that it's gone, why aren't they pulling
Pulling out.
Why don't they pull the plug?
You think there's some benefit that they receive also from remaining members of this coalition?
Well, NASA had a very big constituency.
Massive, actually.
Yeah, and I think some of them are worried that they'll be seen as the ones who
Jumped ship.
Who abandoned.
So this is why they may be talking that way. But we say officially the agreement we signed was an agreement that said that if 3 political parties officially exit, then NASA ceases to exist.
How many are you in total?
We are 5.
And none of you has walked out officially.
None.
Why don't you want to walk out? Why doesn't Amani? Why is Amani staying in this coalition?
Remember, I'm the one who founded NASA.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So you're not going to leave your baby behind.
that is the thing.
That's the crux of the matter.
Yeah. but in the process, we agreed and talked, and we had one of our members become the candidate. Yeah. But there are some aspects, there are obligations that were put into NASA. There were revenue sharing mechanisms and so forth, which unfortunately are not
being adhered to.
But discussions continue to try and resolve some of those issues. If it becomes impossible, maybe we'll go into an arbitration process.
Which is why I was asking that question. Why is it that they find it so easy to walk all over you? I mean, you founded this coalition.
But
you
remember,
founded NASA. NASA is
it's your baby, you've just said.
Yes,
but
and then you're telling me that there are other coalition partners who are playing around with the money.
But let me ask the question.
But you see, Wiper is a member. Ford Kenya is a member. ODM is a member. ANC is a member. And the former governor of Bomet, his party Mashinani.
Chama cha Mashinani.
So I cannot be guilty as one person on this. So if there are issues, it's because it's within the context of the entire coalition.
So you're saying there are matters that are being discussed that are, whose details are not available in the public domain.
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, what the public perceives to be the issue may not actually be the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it likely we'll have NASA as it stands today in 2022?
Politics is dynamic. It's possible NASA with a brand, assuming that the issues are resolved, we could still have NASA at that time.
Right.
But equally, we are now alive to the fact that there could be other coalition arrangements that would develop. And in any case, one of the things that I've also been highlighting is that we need to even look at these laws that may now call for post-election coalition arrangements with clarity, because right now some of them are very big.
KANU, are you working with KANU? There's been talk in the public domain that the new reinvigorating KANU with powerful is going to work with ANC.
KANU at this point in time is affiliated more to Jubilee. You know, in the letters.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things as
it stands now. Yes. All right, but the dalliance that is going on amongst politicians within the context of the BBI has not yet translated into any coalition agreement.
Yeah.
Or any new coalition agreement.
Yes. It's still an initiative. All right. Basically to bring people together to discuss. But no new coalition has taken shape.
When we saw you take a helicopter ride with the president all the way to Garissa, of course you saw what happened soon after. You know, there was all this word that, finally Musalia is going to get. In fact, you know, we know the National Treasury is empty and he's been in that docket before. And then it fizzled out. What happened?
I was vindicated. It's because people tend to think that any time you're seen with the president, it's because there's a deal in the
goodies.
You know, I mean...
how long have you known the president?
It could just be a couple of guys taking a helicopter ride,
so
right?
Why were you going to Garissa?
Yeah.
You see, Kenya is... I'm a Kenyan. And I was invited to look at two things. One, the solar farm and how it has been developed by the Kenya Rural Electrification Authority. Then, on the other hand, there was the inauguration of the new military barracks. So these were national events, and I went to see what they had done.
You are a national leader and the head of a national party.
Precisely.
Yes.
So some of these things, and you know, Kenyans and rumor mongering. You know, you see, if we meet in the streets, shake your hand, they'll immediately say
City will be
City is being brought into Amani to ANC, but of course
they will not bother to find out. Do these people know each other, and if they have, for how long have they known each other? No, that man is being bought,
of course,
and is in Spice FM.
And you know, these are the issues that need to be actually thought through by Kenyans. You know, it's because you're trying to limit the freedom of association on very simple matters where people can just interact.
But you see, for the longest time,
politicians are very good at telling us this kind of thing.
But I think a lot of, experience feeds this narrative. Historically, that has been what people have seen. That when two national leaders, 2 well-known politicians, or 3 or 4 are in the company of one another, something is cooking. And then, of course, the public is fed with that thereafter. Can you blame people for thinking
We
that
have
way?
seen
Because
things
they have
cooking.
seen it happen that way previously. It has been seen that that's how it happens.
Well, I think all I can say is that let us broaden our minds as people. That sometimes these interactions have nothing to do with any
They're just that.
any deals that are being struck.
Right. They're just that.
Yeah.
And even when you have, some serious political differences, you're still friends.
Oh yeah.
Yesterday we had Professor James Olekiapi here. You remember he ran
Yes.
against you in 2013.
Yes.
You beat him, right?
Yeah.
He's among he's among those that you beat. And he was telling us, look, after the campaign period, after all that tension, you see the same people shaking hands and being very buddy with one another. And yet the rest of us as people, we are the ones who have all these tensions amongst us. Why is it that you politicians find it very easy to raise the temperature and lower the temperature so easily, and then you leave us hanging?
Well, that it's a philosophical question. I don't know how to answer it. But if anything, I think citizens should learn. The ordinary Kenyan, the day-to-day voter should learn that this process of competition should never be elevated to levels where they get into enmity.
So Kenyans should not take things as they see them. Is that what you're saying? Because it could be presented in a certain way. So are you saying that Kenyans shouldn't?
I think they should.
take it
Kenyans should become keener
and start asking questions
and start
look at the
asking
underbelly of
questions.
issues?
And yes, absolutely. Yeah.
This is what the BBI is supposed to be doing, to getting us to that point where we stop, looking at every electoral cycle and seeing us getting to violence. But then here we are, getting into 2022, in the midst of a BBI discussion, we are talking about certain tribes should not be occupying certain parts of the country.
I mean, where are we going with that?
You see, the dominant discourse, which is a precursor to any form of conditioning, can only be undone with the genesis of new discourse and a consistency of it over a same period, because it has to run interference with what is the dominant discourse. But you don't hear sufficient interference. You have civil rights groups who from time to time say interesting things, a rally here and there, a march here and there, and then it's like they go and take a breath, and they take it for a long time. So by the time they come back, people have even forgotten what the march was all about.
Yeah.
Right.
So it now forms part of what people consider entertainment. So, oh, they're at it again.
Let's see
so
what's gonna
even
come out today, right?
even the very content that they're trying to put across does not drive the message that it is intended. You see, if you consider this discourse that we're discussing, you see what we're doing in an intended way, we are furthering the discourse, because the politics of the day seems to have taken a certain direction.
Yep.
And we, the media, but we discussed this thing prior to coming, we said we contribute significantly to it, because if you look at the headlines like we have here, all right, and you look at The Nation, it's us who put these things out. So it dominates our mind. So everything else that is important doesn't take second place. It starts with fifth going backwards.
I've just been to your sister
Studio.
outfit,
Yes.
studio, and I said exactly what you said. The fundamental question that we need to ask is that to what extent is the media contributing to this mediocrity that we talk about? I mean, frankly, it's a very serious issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the analysis and what have you is sometimes thrown through the window.
And dogma is actually preferred and encouraged.
Precisely.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, I want to thank you very much for
Asante.
coming. And just before we let you go, we've been discussing here on this show very many times and the kind of leadership that we need in this country. We say we need a reformist. We need a leader who thinks of Kenya first. A leader
Radical
who
thinking.
ensures that things are sort of different. Are you that leader, Musalia Mudavadi?
Well, if you go by the track record of what I've been able to achieve before, yes, I'm that leader. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but
I'm in my fourth decade.
I pushed for serious liberalization of this economy, and I took very drastic steps. I pushed for the I changed the law around the Central Bank of Kenya, reduced the tenure of the governor to 2 terms, changed the mandate of the CBK so that its focus was to contain inflation, apart from other aspects of monetary policy.
Mm-hmm.
I pushed for the creation of KRA, put the bill in Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
All the price controls that used to be in this economy, I pushed away. So all I can tell you is that I am up to the task. And I would like to see Kenyans and the entrepreneurship moving, but supported appropriately.
Mheshimiwa, what you say is true. It's 100%, 103% true. When you read this paper, you look at William, the Deputy President in the paper, you look at the former Prime Minister in the paper, they're not there accidentally. There are people who ensure that they're there. When you hear of Michael Joseph, you hear of Safaricom this, you hear, it's not by accident. What you've just said amounts to a phenomenal achievement that very few people in this country, even the current leadership, can claim to have brought into being.
But nobody knows.
Yes. If you're interested in politics as I am, you might know, but Kenyans have no clue. They're enjoying the benefits of things that you did. I'm not asking you to sack anybody. I am simply saying that you need, I'm being prescriptive, forgive me, Mheshimiwa, but surely there ought to be a greater effort in getting these things out in the public domain so that people actually get to know and know it consistently.
Maybe even throw a word to help CT there. We need to hear you blow your trumpet a little louder. Don't you think it needs to happen? Because just the list of things that you've talked about, and I'm sure that if you go through it with a fine-tooth comb, there's more that you've been able to do. But nobody hears it. How then can we say we're going to anybody's going to throw support behind something that they do not know?
We judge you by your silence.
Absolutely.
Or the lack of noise thereof. Make a little more noise.
Done.
There's some
Let me
people
not
who
argue
make-
with you.
There's some people who make noise over one thing that they've done.
Let me not argue with you.
Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of the Amani National Congress, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
of
you.
course, we'll be inviting you again so we can come and discuss the Amani's programs. We can
Okay.
discuss national leadership and politics. Then we can also discuss, of course, Musalia Mudavadi. We expect to see the name Musalia Mudavadi in the 2022 ballot somewhere. Not this time, not being somewhere in the background of, pushing somebody else's coalition. But come back. I mean, let's have your name there.
I'll need your vote, my friend.
Voila, there it is.
You know how many you got in 2013? You can multiply that. Thank you very much and have a good one.
Okay,
Asante
great.
sana. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.